Hi, I'm Taylor Stimson, and my educational giant is Catharine Beecher. I just wanted to start off with a quote by her that I really liked, and it says, "It is impossible for a conscientious woman to secure that peaceful mind and cheerful enjoyment of life which all should seek, who is constantly finding her duties jarring with each other and much remaining undone which she feels she ought to do. In consequence of this, there will be a secret uneasiness which will throw a shade over the whole current of life, never to be removed till she so efficiently defines and regulates her duties that she can fulfill them." So I just really like that because it kind of outlines the fact that she focused more on women and she focused more on showing the importance of them in the household and the home, and we need to recognize the duties that women have in all of those areas. So Catharine Beecher was born in East Hampton, New York in 1800, and her parents were Roxana Foote Beecher and Lyman Beecher, and her father was actually a world-renowned Presbyterian minister and evangelist. Catharine Beecher was the oldest of 9 siblings, and when she was 9 years old, she moved to Litchfield, Connecticut, where she attended her first female academy. When Catharine Beecher was 16 years old, her mother died of tuberculosis, and due to her mother's death, she became kind of a mother figure to all of her 9 siblings because she was the oldest, and she took a lot of responsibility and became kind of a role model to them. So that really shows where she came to get the ideas of the importance of women and why she was such a strong advocate for women during the 1800s. A year after her mother died, her father remarried a woman named Harriet Porter Beecher, who was actually an author of a best-selling novel on anti-slavery called Uncle Tom's Cabin. And with her new stepmother Harriet came 4 more siblings she kind of had to take care of and be a role model to. And many of her siblings ended up being famous pastors, suffrage leaders, and anti-slavery leaders. So that kind of shows the kind of importance that they all had in history and where she got her role models, especially from her father and her stepmother. And when she was still in her teens, she really enjoyed writing poems, and she actually got a couple of them published in the Christian Spectator. And she also spent a lot of her time outside of school studying mathematics, philosophy, and Latin, which kind of shows the love she always had for education and where she got the love for it. And when she was 22, she got engaged to Alexander Fisher, who was a Yale professor and a mathematician, and he ended up dying in a shipwreck off the coast of Ireland before they got the chance to get married, and when she was still 22. So after the death of her fiance, she decided to devote her life to education because that's what he would have wanted her to do, and that's what they were planning on doing together. So she never ended up getting married, and she just focused all of her efforts on education and women. And a year after that, in 1823, Beecher and her sister Mary Beecher founded the Hartford Female Seminary in Hartford, Connecticut, and this school focused a lot more on a wide range of subjects other than just the fine arts and language, like most of the other female schools did during this time. And when they were working on this school, she introduced calisthenics, which is part of physical education for girls, and she came up with this to improve women's health and to show that women aren't as fragile as everyone thought they were during this time. And in 1831, Beecher moved to Ohio with her father, who became president of Lane Theological Seminary in Cincinnati. And while she was in Ohio, she opened another females academy called the Western Female Institute. And this school did not stay open for very long because it was during an economic depression and there was not enough financial support to keep the academy open. And while she was still in Ohio, she worked on the McGuffrey Readers, which is the first textbook to be accepted by everybody in all of the elementary schools in the nation. And a little bit after she finished working on the textbook, she began to travel and lecture to support herself while she was traveling. And while she was doing that, she was writing some of her most famous works, including a treatise on domestic economy, which was published in 1841, The Duty of the American Women to Their Country in 1845, and the Domestic Receipt Book in 1846. And after this, in 1852, Beecher founded the American Women's Educational Association, and the goal of this association was to find more women teachers to go west and open more schools for women. And a little while after that, she began to write a couple more books entitled The True Remedy of the Wrongs of Women and Women's Suffrage in Women's Profession, all in 1871. And I thought it was really interesting because she was actually against women's suffrage, which is kind of strange, thinking about all of her siblings and how they were such supporters of it and how much of an impact they had, and for her to go against the women's suffrage, I thought was really interesting. And she wrote actually a couple books on it, and she began to teach and lecture again in the 1860s and 1870s, and while she was doing this, she wrote another book with her sister entitled The American Woman's Home, and it talks about the role of women in their home and how important motherhood is and all of the duties that come along with this. And in 1870, Catharine Beecher wrote one more book entitled An Address on Female Suffrage, which goes into more detail on why she doesn't think that female should have suffrage and the task of women in politics and how women need to be more focused on the household and the classroom instead of all of the other things that go along with politics. And Catharine Beecher died in Elmira, New York in 1878, and I really thought that Catharine Beecher was really interesting, and I chose her because I knew that she had such an important role in the importance of women in education and all of the rights we have now in education. And I just thought it was really interesting how she went about everything and how she devoted her whole life to education since her fiance died. And I always thought that women in education were super important because all of my teachers, mostly in elementary and middle school and high school, were women, and they all inspired me to become a teacher, especially my mom. And my mom told me a couple of things about Catharine Beecher when I was trying to decide which educational giant to choose. So she helped me choose a lot more of this, and I just think that she's really inspiring. And yeah, thank you for watching.